Good, good morning. Glad to see that people will shortly be arriving. At least I hope people will be. Um, I'm. I tell you, today's going to be a short stream. I started late, as we see. It's 11 o'clock. So, and honestly, if anybody watched or listened to my stream from yesterday, y'all know it's Infusion Day. And the infusion yesterday actually went pretty cotton picking well for me for a change. Today it seems to be dragging me down a bit, and I'm not feeling that great. I want to be going into work anyway. Still need that paycheck. Um, I am going to start this day off, though, here a little different. There's a Republican governor that is saying something that needs to be said. Now, y'all know that I am a conservative, and I don't call myself a Republican, even though I vote Republican, because they just happen to match up with my beliefs more times than not. Quite the opposite of the Democrats. Rarely do Democrats say something that I agree with. Or they may say something I agree with, but their plans around it or about it is something I totally disagree with. Strange way politics works that way. But Christian Ohm here, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. She's saying something that needs to be said. And I'm glad she is saying it. It makes me happy that when somebody says something like this, and they're doing and saying what needs to be said. All right, here we go.
Thank you. We talk about rewriting history. Let's talk about rewriting history. We've got Republican governors across this country pretending they didn't shut down their states, that they didn't close their beaches, that they didn't mandate masks, that they didn't issue shelter in places. Now, I'm not picking fights with Republican governors. All I'm saying is that we need leaders with grit, that their first instinct is to make the right decision, that they don't backtrack and then try to fool you into the fact that they never made the wrong decision. So demand honesty from your leaders. Demand honesty from your leaders and make sure that every one of them is willing to make the tough decisions. South Dakota did not do any of those. We didn't mandate. We trusted our people, issued and told them that personal responsibility was the best answer. And this is a short rundown.
And that is what I'm saying needs to be said. That is what I'm saying needs to be said to these Republican leaders. All right? You need to be a Republican from the get-go. Not one of these people that are going to sit there and claim to be a Republican only to turn around and have what is said or what you do follows Democrat policy. That is what needs to happen. And unfortunately, too often, what we end up getting are Republicans who follow the Democrat plan. And when they follow the Democrat plan, they sit there, and when it's noticed that it was actually the wrong plan, they pretend that they were forced for some reason into doing what the Democrats wanted them to do. DeSantis did it right. Trump did it right. Let's remember, the Democrats attacked Trump left, right, and around the circle for not asserting more executive power, not taking over companies and forcing them to manufacture pea gear and forcing them to manufacture other items. They got mad at him for not forcing states to shut down, but to leaving it up into the hands of the governors, who then some governors like DeSantis turned around and left it in the hands of the local communities, the local mayors, the local county commissions, and finally up to the people, the individual themselves. That is the type of person we need. Well, good morning, Becca. I'm sorry. But that's the type of person that we need to be, the type of idea, the instinct that we need to foster within the Republican Party, or within the American people. Not just Republicans, but within the American people, that the individual is more responsible for themselves. And I just like the fact that Kristi Noem pulled that out. And she's saying, don't just because these governors have an R behind their name, let them slide. Hold their feet to the fire. The ones who took on too much power, like the Democrat governors did, and shut down things, only to later claim they didn't, hold their feet to the fire. Don't let them rewrite history. Don't let them rewrite their own history now that it's being shown that what they did was wrong. And any Republican governor who did that needs to come forward and admit that they were wrong, that they should have left it up in the hands of the local communities. Our local community, we handled it, I felt, quite well. Did we shut down the beaches a couple of times? Yes. But did they other times, had the police out there enforcing the group size limitations? Yes, they did. And that's the way it should have been handled from the beginning. From the president, remember the power of the American experiment rises from the people to the local community to the state, and finally to the presidency and what goes on in the Washington, D.C. That's the way it is supposed to be working. And we got to hold people's feet to the fire, make sure that they understand that. Hold these elected officials to that. A lot of places are right now, but they're doing it over one issue only, CRT. CRT is getting blown up in a lot of local schools. And parents are out there demanding that their children, that it stays out of their schools. And you have a lot of teachers who feel that, well, I know what's best for your student, for your child. I know what's best for my students. We need to hold them accountable. Remember, they work for us. They're paid out of tax money. Be it your income tax, be it your sales tax. Morning, Neil. Remember, all these idiots are paid out of your money. Your sales tax, local income taxes, land tax, property tax. That's where they get their paycheck from. It's not just the federal government that every one of their expenditures comes out of our pocket. It's not just the federal government. It's your local governments too. Their money comes out of our pockets. Therefore, they work for us. That's not their money they're spending. They're spending our money. It's not government money, it's taxpayers' money. And we need to get that back to the forefront. We need to get that back in place, get that back to the mind, back into our own minds. Every time government construction is, the government decides they want to build something, make sure you understand that's not government money going to buy that multi-million-dollar building or to build that multi-million-dollar building with the fancy arches and columns and everything else. That's our money that's being used. That's our dollars. And let's demand that our dollars get spent where we need it spent. Demand that they use our dollars instead of paying for columns in the courthouse, arch ceilings, domes, fancy brickwork, fancy stonework, that we need our potholes filled. We need the streets maintained. We need our bridges maintained. That's where our money is supposed to be going. And every time they say that they need to have the teachers' pay raise, every time they say the police need a pay raise, the police and the teachers should not be better paid than the person who's paying them. That's a fact. The cops should not be paid better than the people who are paying them. Your city commissioners, your mayors, your city managers, none of them should be paid better than what you are. Exactly. It's not just bridges. It's they're saying infrastructure, and we can see it. Infrastructure across the nation is falling down. Why? Because they've spent money where it didn't need to be spent, building fancy offices, outrageous paychecks. Some teachers making $100,000 a year, while the average pay in that community is only $50,000. Why should teachers be paid more than twice than what the community standard is? Why should cops be paid more than twice than community standard? And remember, we vote for these people, Becca. We're the ones that put them in that office. If they don't want to listen to us, if they feel that there are betters, vote them out. Vote them out. Put someone new in and make sure they understand the reason why they're being put in is because this guy thought he was an elite, that he was better than everyone else. Good morning, Bishop. You're right, Bishop. Politicians do get rich. No matter, Pelosi's husband just made over $5 million. Ironically, before a bill gets voted on, that would have stopped him from making that kind of money. But he sold the stocks or bought the stocks just in time to make that money. But we've got to get out there to vote. Now, I did spend a little bit more. And then here's this. and this is something that our voting was a thing before 2020, right? Now, it's not that the general population is ignorant. It's just the general population, so many, they vote for the R or the D. And I've got to give the general population this. A lot, besides those that just vote for the R and D, no matter what, you've got those who work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. They don't have time to sit down and research everything, sadly. So they have to believe in what's being said on the news. And they come home, they turn on the 6 o'clock news, or they listen to it, or they grab the local newspaper. And this is where the bias of the media hurts us so much. But we do need to start holding our elected officials' feet to the fire on what they said they've done versus what they actually did, on what they say what they're going to do versus what they actually do. It's stuff like what I'm going to share right here, right now. When we vote, and in the history of this country, a lot of our founding fathers and a lot of the great of the leaders of the country in the early stages were deeply religious. Some not so much, and some were, they spoke the words but didn't quite live up to everything they spoke. But that's the nature of man. But one thing that they all agreed on was that we ran our government separate from religion, that we were going to be a secular country. And the Democrats, when the Republicans and conservatives pushed too hard, saying, trying to pull quotations out of the Bible to support positions, the Democrats fought back, and rightly so. We are a secular country that allows people to worship as they wish. We don't have a national church. It's written into our Constitution to prevent that from happening.
The act of getting vaccinated, the act of administering the vaccinations, well, these acts are the very essence of what the Bible and so many faiths tell us about the importance of our role and our power when we say love thy neighbor. And I truly believe in the power of that.
Let's just take a look at what Miss Kamala just said. Yeah, nail her. Now, I don't pretend to say I know what her religious faiths or beliefs are. I don't care what they are. It's amazing how the left will pull out quotations or condemn conservatives for not doing what would Jesus do? What does the Bible say? They use the Bible as a cudgel against conservatives because many conservatives are religious. So they use the Bible as a cudgel against them. When I hear somebody on the left I start to pull out the Bible and start using religious figures in their arguments. That makes me very leery of whatever their argument is. Because to me, that's their last cudgel to use against you to support what they want done. And the love thy neighbor is not just love thy neighbor as thyself. You know, partial quotations, you know, that's not way you do things. That's not the way to get things done. That does not help us. Okay. You know, the entire quotation, of course, you know, love thy neighbor as thyself. There is no greater commandment and greater than these. I don't hear the Democrats pulling that out. They don't. So whenever you hear a liberal pulling out the Bible or quotations, question them. Find out why. Because chances are good they're just using that as a cudgel to get things done. Yeah, well, I understand, Becca. I understand why they're pushing, want everybody to get vaccinated. And personally, I don't disagree with the idea that that everybody who wants to get vaccinated should be able to. All right, but notice what I said. Everybody who wants to be vaccinated. Not everybody should be vaccinated. And the difference in that is if you want to get vaccinated, fine. If you don't want to get vaccinated, it should not be held over your head. You should not be restricted from any other rights or privileges as anybody else. They should not be able to use, oh, you didn't get you don't have proof of vaccination, you can't get on this plane. You can't get on the train. You can't go to this theater. You can't go to this dance. You can't go to this meeting. You can't go to this theme park. And that's what a lot of Democrats are pushing. They're saying, well, yeah, you don't have to get vaccinated, but if you don't, then, well, you can't get on airplanes. You can't ride the trains. You can't go to movie theaters. You can't go into this organizational meeting. You can't do this. You can't do that. And oh, by the way, you have to prove it. Prove it? No. I shouldn't have to prove anything as a free American. I have the right to go into these places that are open to the public. I thought that got resolved a long time ago. I really do. And since we're sort of talking about keeping this sort of about voting today, there's a little bit of a thing happening. No, I mean, yeah, when I went to get my shots, I had to sign in. When I went to Walmart to get shot, I had to sign in. They have it in their records that I got shot. I got my shots. So of course they know who got it and who didn't. Walmart, I mean, I fully knew that when I went and got my shot. The minute they typed it into their computer system, and I tell you what shocked me, okay, is my doctor is asking if I need refills and on my pain medications. Well, some of my refills I got done, or some of my prescriptions I got filled at the local military hospital. This is pre-COVID. He was able to put my name into his system and see that I got a prescription filled at the military base. Not only what prescription I had filled at Walmart, but what prescriptions I had filled at the military base. And that was a real eye-opener for me. I was absolutely shocked at that. Good morning, Ryan. I was absolutely shocked that he could access my military records like that. But that's what he can do. So if you think that your prescriptions are secure, they're not. And people in Michigan need to be a little concerned because there's talks of having the audit of the 2020 election in Michigan, and there's people trying to get that, like the ones that went on in Georgia and the ones going on in Arizona. Well, out of nowhere, excuse me, out of nowhere, the testing department for election source. Hello all. We will be visiting the Oceana County on July 15th to perform preventative maintenance on your voting equipment. This is not an upgrade, just preventive maintenance. It is not necessary for the clerk to be on site while we work. We just need access to the equipment. It's not necessary for the clerk to be on site. If the date or time, that's just, doom. Now, there's been some questions about this because what kind of maintenance, what exactly will they be doing besides the maintenance that they're talking about? Because these machines will be needed in their pristine state if the audit measure goes through. There have been some questions, and I don't live in Michigan, so this is more Monkey's arena. He'd have better sources for it than I do right now of how the audit is progressing, the move for an audit. But what exactly are they going to be doing to the equipment here besides their preventative maintenance? That's just a little thing. Then, good. If you don't know about this one, oh, Kamala, she really put her foot in her mouth. And that was kind of funny. It really was. And everybody got on her about this comment.
Is agreeing to voter ID one of those compromises that you'd support?
I don't think that we should underestimate what that could mean. Because in some people's mind, that means, well, you're going to have to Xerox or photocopy your ID to send it in to prove you are who you are. Well, there are a whole lot of people, especially people who live in rural communities, who don't, there's no Kinko's, there's no Office Max near them. People have to understand that when we're talking about voter ID laws, be clear about who you have in mind and what would be required of them to prove who they are. Of course, people have to prove who they are, but not in a way that makes it almost impossible for them to prove who they are.
Really? You know, Kamala, and my answer to that was, she must be thinking everybody that doesn't live in the big city where she's used to, being the child of quite wealthy parents, living in the upper echelons of American life. Well, Ryan, it's just not that, but I've got a printer. How many printers out there also have a copy feature? Think about that. All right, your computer. You've got a printer. You take a picture with your smartphone of your driver's license and you send it to the printer. Okay. If you've got a laptop, if you have a tablet, these all come with cameras. You use that to take a picture and you print it off. Yep, Ryan, I can scan. Yeah, that's right. There's apps out there that scan documents and print them off. The percentage of people who don't have access in their home to copy has got to be so minuscule, it's not funny. There's ways to do it. And Kamala, I hate to tell you this, but rural farmers don't live in abject poverty where they just now got color TVs and home electricity. Farmers use computers for running their daily business. The old Farmer's Almanac hasn't been used in decades. Farmers use computers to help them know when to till their fields, when to plant, what to plant, when to harvest. Yes, farmers use their computers for this now. Technology, well over 99% of the people in the United States has access to the technology to do what needs to be done. So quit trying to BS everyone. And even I believe this gentleman's from, this is a gentleman from Wisconsin. No audio. Well, I'm glad I didn't.
With ballot harvesting, HR 1 legally implementing voting structure validate my Democratic colleagues' claim. But this committee record has demonstrated this as well. Turnout in the 2020 election. And I thought I would take this opportunity during a remote hearing to take everyone on the committee to rural America. While I haven't found a Kinko's, the Vice President of the United States may be very interested to learn that I can confirm folks in rural Wisconsin and rural communities across the United States have running water, have electricity. And I found this new invention that I don't think was there when Vice President Biden first ran for Senate, but is available now here in rural America, and it's called a camera phone. It's amazing. It has a camera and a phone, and it can actually take a photo of an ID and can be submitted electronically. Shocking, I know. Now, it may not have come to San Francisco, so Vice President Kamala Harris may not be as familiar, but I encourage everyone to check out these new camera phones that can be used to provide enhanced integrity in our elections for people voting by mail remotely in rural America. And
There we go. Yeah, he does have that look that he'd been in a scrap or two. But he didn't say anything different than what anybody else has been saying. Kamala has, she's just not ready for prime time. She really isn't. Nearly every time she opens her mouth for more than 30 seconds, she says something so completely stupid that the sound clips when she runs again, just of her making comments, is going to be amazing. She's writing ads for the Republicans as we speak. The reason why they're underestimated, Becca, is because of it's not populous. The Democrats want to spend their money in the big cities where great populations of people that they can offer the handouts to. You have more people in the cities on welfare and other forms of government assistance. Let me rephrase that. You have more people in the big cities who are on taxpayer assistance than you do out in the rural areas. And you also have greater groups of people who are to have self-segregated. You know, they've self-segregated into ethnic areas. I mean, New York, Chinatown, Little Italy. You have the Cuban area. You have the Puerto Rican area. And they can go into that area and they can speak to whatever they want to say to that identity. And you get somebody like, when Kamala starts her next group of political targeting, she's going to start playing up her Indian ancestry and her Jamaican ancestry. She's going to downplay to a degree the fact that she's black and upgrade to the Jamaican. We know this is going to happen. We just know it. And that's why they don't, the Democrats and the Republicans also don't spend a lot of time concerned about the rural America. Let's be honest about it. The bones they throw out to the farmers and people that live in the rural, isn't that great. What they're playing up to there usually is, the independence. Because farmers are fairly independent. Their conservative values carry them over with rural America. Hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. All wrapped around inside of an American flag. Hey, Useless, how you doing today? And now for the main course. We've had the appetizers, stuff to get us all warmed up. Now for the main course. And we're going to start off here with, what happened? Hit the wrong button. Yeah, I've seen that before, Nil. Okay. Let's start off with everybody's favorite ginger. Whoops. Okay, yes, I'm making sure that. Okay. Got America's favorite ginger up there.
His message in his voting rights speech tomorrow. Is he going to be pushing more for congressional action? Is he going to be talking about state action? And what is his strategy to tackle this issue beyond the speech tomorrow?
Sure. Well, first, thank you for the question, because he's very focused on this speech tomorrow, one that he himself wanted to deliver. He'll lay out the moral case for why denying the right to vote is a form of suppression and a form of silencing, and how he will redouble his commitment to using every tool at his disposal to continue to fight to protect the fundamental right of Americans to vote against the onslaught of voter suppression laws based on a dangerous and discredited conspiracy theory that culminated in an assault on our Capitol. He'll call out the greatest irony of the big lie is that no election in our history has met such a high standard, with over 80 judges, including those appointed by his predecessor, throwing out all challenges. He'll also decry efforts to strip the right to vote as authoritarian and anti-American, and stand up against the notion that politicians should be allowed to choose their voters or to subvert our system by replacing independent election authorities with partisan ones. And he will highlight the work of the administration against this, the necessity of passing the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and how we need to work together with civil rights organizations to build as broad a turnout and voter education system to overcome the worst challenge to our democracy since the Civil War.
Okay, she's already said a lot that needs to be unpacked. All right.
So this is an opportunity for him to make the case to the American people about how this is a fundamental right, what he will continue to do from the federal government. I would remind you, he signed a historic executive order on the 56th anniversary of Selma, which put in place a funding measures and a priority from the federal government. The Department of Justice has already used tools to fight against these laws in states. They will continue to. He'll talk about that as well. But the last piece is he will talk about also the importance of empowering, engaging, and supporting efforts around the country to make sure people know their rights and understand how to participate in the process.
So it sounds
Okay. So let's start off here with let's start off here with, first of all, fake ginger. Okay. With congressional action. All right. Let's take a look at where Congress is what Congress is using to hinge the constitutionality of their actions on. This is Article 1, Section 4. The times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. Everybody knows that. We all know that it is up to the states to set their own voting rules. But this is the one time where I'm going to say if the founding fathers had stopped right there, that'd been great. But they didn't. But the Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations, except as to the places of choosing senators. So that is where the Democrats are drawing their constitutional authority to federalize elections. That's where they're drawing it from. That's where they're drawing their power to say, well, we're going to we're going to eliminate the voter ID requirements. We're going to eliminate the requirement or the exclusion of felons. We're going to eliminate the requirement that, and they could if they wanted to, that you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote for a state senator or a state representative. They can't throw that out for the president, but they can throw it out for the state legislatures. Precedent's already been set with cities allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections. So this is where we're going to be. This is where the constitutional battle is going to go. And the Supreme Court, and we already know which 5 it's going to be. They're going to hang their hat on this phrase, and that's going to be the end of it. And this is where we're going to come in some trouble. And I expect to hear, we haven't heard them yet. At least I haven't. But I expect to hear Article 1, Section 4 referenced in the upcoming months. A lot. And the Democrats going, see, we had the constitutional authority to do this. Right there it is in black and white. And they're going to take that. This is going to be one time where they're going to say, this is what the Constitution says, and that's it. There's not going to be any, well, they didn't really mean it to mean this, like they do with the Second Amendment. Or, well, the times have changed, and this this doesn't really mean what it used to mean. So I expect this to be starting to pop out here over the next few months. Now, one of the things that the Democrats are really hating, and there's been quite a few bills to it happened in the 2000 election, or in the 2020 election, and they're trying to stop it from, and the Republicans are trying to stop it from happening. And the Democrats are hating life. And this is one time where I have to agree with the Republicans again. And I hate to say it, but I was unaware that this happened until after the election. Facebook magnate Zuckerberg and his wife gave a nonprofit $400 million to pay election workers, train poll workers, and rent polling locations for the November 3rd vote. All right. The Zuckerberg's largesse is an unprecedented private expenditure on a process held long to be exclusively a public operation and spurred at least 9 lawsuits. The donation roughly equals what Congress appropriated to the states in this year's CARE Act to pay for running of the 2020 election amid the pandemic. Okay? So Zuckerberg did that. And you sit there, and a lot of people will say, oh, well, he's just trying to make certain that everybody's got, that the votes were done and everything got a chance to vote. Well, there was a problem with that. Becca, you're not wrong, Becca. You're not wrong. That's their excuse for saying not only illegals, but non-citizens in general. Where we are all brought up on the idea that only citizens can vote. But anyway, so let's take a look at where Zuckerberg's money went. The Amistad Journey prepared this. The legitimacy effect of private funding in federal and state elections. Okay. Now, I'm not that familiar with this group, but I read through this report. The 2020 presidential election witnessed an unprecedented and coordinated public-private relationship with partnerships to improperly influence the 2020 presidential election on behalf of one particular candidate and party. Funded by hundreds of millions of dollars by Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg and other high-tech interests, activist organizations created a two-tiered electoral system that treated voters differently depending on whether they lived in Democrat or Republican strongholds. All right. So we'll just scroll on down here because a lot of this, just shows where the money was. Okay. Oh, there we go. What they saw happen was that these voter boxes were placed in areas where Democrats expected to do very well, where the population was strongly Democratic. It was to the tune of one voter box for every 4,000 people. But the voter boxes in conservative areas was one box for every 72,000 people. And I knew I should have had this set up better. I apologize. I apologize that I didn't have this set up better, and I'm not going to keep scrolling through there just to make it. But this is where, again, we've got to, when you have deeply partisan groups like Facebook, like Twitter, like YouTube, Alphabet, Google, that's all one organization, I know. When they start donating money for get out the votes and funding, and this is one of the things the Republicans is trying to stop, is allowing the private donations to secretaries of elections or to election groups, people who actually run the elections. They're trying to get that kind of partisan money out of it. And the Democrats right now, because of this strongly Democrat money going into them, of course, is going to try to stop it. We're going to try to stop the Republicans from preventing it to happen. Let me make myself clear there. We need to hold these people's feet to the fire. It's like I, started off saying with Kristi Noem. Those of us who are aware of what's going on, we need to get the word out too. I'm getting the word out to you. I don't know if you guys knew this was happening. But now you know. And if you did know, have you told other people what's going on? Have you used your voice to let other people know what mechanisms are being used to sway elections? Like I said, I was ignorant of the fact that Zuckerberg had paid out $400 million to fund putting ballot boxes in liberal areas to get out the votes for liberals, for Biden. That should not be legal. That should not be legal. But it happened. And we all need to take responsibility for the fact that people don't know what's going on. It's our fault. It's our fault that we know, and the people closest to us, people we work with, people that we see, our family, our friends, that they don't know. And no, I'm not talking about making this one, staying on a soapbox every day screaming at the top of your lungs. But there's ways of getting the word out without being obnoxious about it, without acting like a newly born feminist about it. Everything's biased, and you got to say something about it. But there's ways of letting your friends know that it happens. No, I have to disagree with. Again, maybe this is my naivety, but I honestly believe that if people know what the dirty tricks are out there, what's happening behind the scenes, that they will care. Or at least there's more that will care than won't. And then those that don't care will eventually care when enough people start raising their voice about it. It's that trusted friend routine. I've got friends that I trust. I've got people that I trust that won't lie to me, that I trust them not to lie to me. That what they tell me is the truth. And I accept it as being truth enough to go back and look it up to know more about it. Because I understand that, you have to understand that, while somebody's telling you what they believe to be the truth, they may not know all the facts around it. That's versus I've got people, if they tell me that the sky's blue, the first thing I'm going to do is walk outside and check it out for myself. They tell me water's wet. I want to look at it and ask them if they know how they figured that out. You're right, Neil. There are people who treat their politics like a religion. And those are the ones we have to be careful about. They're the ones that will sit there. It's like the one, the people who meant it seriously when they said, our Lord and God, Trump. And there were people that meant that serious. What I really wished, and this is something that changed evidently, it's changed after I went to school, or my school was one of the different ones. Starting in middle school American history studies, we spent at least 2 weeks on the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. We spent 2 weeks studying those two documents. And we did the same thing in high school. We spent at least 2 weeks going over the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Now, obviously, we spent more time on the Constitution because the Declaration of Independence is a short document. It really is. You can read it in just a few minutes. The Constitution, on the other hand, takes a bit more. And there's a lot in there. And you have to be able to sit down and think about what's being said in that document. And sometimes, it's like Article 1, Section 4. It is my opinion they should have stopped it. They shouldn't have added that second part about Congress being able to make changes. I don't think they foresaw Congress ever getting to the point, or the states allowing it to happen, to where Congress felt that the states' rights no longer mattered. And I don't believe they ever thought that the states would let their rights, their authority to be eroded as they have been. I don't think they thought we'd get to the point where the people would start to look at government as a nanny, as their mommy and daddy. I don't think that ever was a thought. I mean, it's the deal with the story about Ben Franklin. As the close of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, Franklin walked out of the Independence Hall, and a woman asked him, well, doctor, what have we got, a republic or a monarchy? And Franklin repeatedly said, a republic if you can keep it. And that's the problem. I don't think we've kept it. Slavery was a second point to the Civil War. The primary thing was trying to keep the unions together. Yeah, well, yeah, Becca, you're right. They make the threat. Texas makes the threat, but they never go carry it through or start the paperwork on it or put it to a vote. But I believe you're the only state that has it in your state constitution that you have the right to withdraw from the union. And that's the part that gets forgotten about, is that, hey, Kiefer Dam, how you doing? Yeah, we're not going much longer. We're not going much longer here. I didn't plan on this being much more than an hour anyway today. The infusion yesterday, while I felt good yesterday, today it does take a lot out of me on the second day. But yeah, the state that what I was saying though, people forget that we are a union of 50 states. We're not provinces here like in Canada or in Germany. We are not a country that was divided up into 50 states for ease of government, but we are a country that was made when 50 states decided to work, when 13 states decided to work together. And those 13 states accepted other states into the union. So and when states were accepted into the union, it was under the promise that the states would be largely self-governing. And the federal government was there to handle federal issues, international issues, not local politics. So, yeah, we've got to get the education back into the schools. And what that means is we've got to get rid of the teachers. And we've all seen them out there. We've all seen the videos. The teachers saying, to hell with everybody. We're still going to teach CRT. We're still going to teach this program. We're still going to teach that one. We're going to teach it because we feel it's more important than what you think is important. And that's something we've got to get done. We've got to make the schools understand, and the teachers understand, that these things are our rights. And that they go back to one of the first things I said. These people are our employees, not our masters. And you hear a lot of, how can I put it? They call themselves auditors. They may be a Second Amendment auditor where they go out and push for Second Amendment rights by wearing a gun in public where they're legally allowed to. We got this one guy here in Florida. Under Florida law, it's legal to walk to and from fishing, hunting, and camping with while armed and not have to be concealed. Well, he'll park his car a mile or a half mile away from where he wants to go fishing, usually at a county pier or a city pier. And then, he pushes when the cops show up, as they inevitably do. He's got the laws quoted and on pieces of paper, and he hands it to them. And he's been arrested and trespassed and everything else a half a dozen times. Then you have these First Amendment auditors that go out and, record at military bases, and they'll record at city halls and police departments and such. And when people come out to question about it, well, I'm just making, I'm pushing exerting my rights to, under the First Amendment. And they call themselves citizen journalists, and they have the right, their right to videotape or photograph from public sidewalks is protected by the Constitution. And I'm not arguing with them. They're right. They're 100% right. They do have that right. And they don't have to call themselves citizen journalists. They just have the right to, you have the right, anything you can see from public, to take a picture of it. I'm not going to disagree with that thought process at all. But we need to get the same concept back to our schools, that these teachers are our employees. And as our employees, we set the rules for what they teach. They don't tell us what they're going to teach. Becca, you're not wrong. I've watched a lot of these auditors' videos, and there's some of them that's like, I wish they would get arrested and stay in jail, or I wish they would just stop doing this, because they're just so obnoxious in their actions. And there's other ones that are really cool about it. So the in-your-face guys are some of the in-your. There's one particular guy, and I'm not going to say names. One of his earlier tricks was to go to police stations at night and go back and videotape around, videotape or record around their cars, crawl up underneath the car, put his camera under the car, or, stuff like that. And then, proclaim that he's not doing anything wrong. I was like, well, you're really pushing the limits there, buddy. But he makes a lot of money doing it. I mean, he does it full time. But he spends most of his money on his lawyers, getting his butt out of jail. But then, he turns around and sues the police departments or the cities for, for every hour he's sitting in jail, he pushes for $20,000. I was in your jail cell for 12 hours. I want $240,000 for my time. And he's got a lawyer that he's paying 40% to, that is more than happy to take that, take that. So yeah, he makes a lot of money doing this crap, as well as the people that donate to him. So, but we've got to, but in a way though, Becca, we need to get more aggressive in the way we, kick back at our teachers and the school boards. We got to stop saying, well, yeah, you're right, you went to school for this, when the schools they went to taught them were the ones that made them think that CRT is a good thing. Made them think that we as parents don't have the rights or the authority to tell them what they have to teach and how we want it taught. We've got to get more aggressive in that. I've been banned from our local school board meetings in the past because I got verbally aggressive. I used the word damn. And because of that, I was kicked out of school board meetings. because I told him I didn't give a damn what happened in other places. I was concerned about what happened here. Oh, yeah, his cause became very profitable. But we've got to go to our school boards and sit there and tell them what we want in our schools. They're there to represent us. They're spending our money. Those are our kids. They don't decide what is and isn't taught in our schools. They're not the final word. We, the community that pays them, are the final word. And that's what we got to get back to. We've got to get back to that. We've got to get back to the school boards listening to the parents. And the parents have got to become active again. It comes back to, if you want your individual rights, you've got to take the individual responsibilities. And the individual responsibility is getting to the school board meetings, getting to the county commission meetings, getting to the open city council meetings, and get your voice heard. Let them know what you want. Don't take a back seat to them. And also the school boards and city commissions and such have a tendency to schedule their meetings during working hours when people can't make it to the meetings. Because why? They're at work. This happened to us here. They rezoned a huge tract of land really close to where I live. It was zoned purely residential. Well, then the hurricane came through and it's largely forested because nobody was putting up homes there. So it's mostly pine trees. Well, the hurricane came through and knocked all the trees down and killed them. So now the owners are saying, well, we can't use this. Trees are dead. We're going to have to haul that lumber out of there and sell it. Let's try to do something else. Well, when they had their rezoning meetings about it, they did it at 9:30 in the morning. They had the meetings when people were at work. And you had to go to the meeting to find out what was being planned to be put there. They wouldn't tell anybody in advance. They wouldn't even tell you what companies were looking at building there. And to be honest, I still don't know. I couldn't make any of the meetings, so I don't know what's still being built there. Oh, yeah, I know. I'm getting text messages and phone calls. Somehow or another, they seem to think my wife's phone number is mine because I'm getting a bunch of text messages in my wife's name, which is absolutely hilarious. Yeah, our school board superintendent, I voted for the man. I voted for him twice. I don't like him, but I have voted for him twice because he's better than the people that have run against him. So, I mean, you and sometimes that's another problem. The people that you can't get good people to run for the offices. Because the offices have become so profitable. They can they don't have to work very hard, and they get a lot of money to do it. So, well, anyway, unless anybody else has got anything they want to say, and I'll post this for the third time. Unless anybody else has got something they want to jump on and say or have words about, I'm going to go ahead and get ready to call this down. Well, mine knows quite well that I voted for him, but I only voted for him because he was the better choice of the best of the choices that were available. We had one woman running that she said from the get-go that she believed that Heather's two mommies and my two daddies need to be standard curriculum in kindergarten and elementary school. Then we had the one that said that they wanted to make it a policy not to have the American flags flying at the schools, or to say have the national anthem played, because we were too diverse of a school district with people who didn't that weren't U.S. citizens, and that they found it offensive to hear the national anthem played and not their own. So he didn't last very long running either. But you do have people out there running who believe that way and want to get into positions to push their own, that kind of agenda. So you've got to watch them. But we need to make these positions, again, when the average salary in your school, and I'm just going to use one of them was called Big Mama. If the average salary in your city is $65,000, why in the hell is your school board superintendent being paid $120,000? Or why are your teachers being paid $75,000 or more? Why are your cops being paid $100,000 once they become full-time police and been on, got through their probationary period? I've seen reports of street cops being paid $200,000 a year. These are just the street cops. These aren't the The chief of detectives are not the police commissioner. They're not the police chief. These are just street cops. I just can't see the justification for it. And of course, with them being paid that much, you know, they feel that they know that they're the elites. And we're just a source of income for them. And, you know, I'm painting with a pretty broad brush here on the cops and teachers and such. There's always that few out there that aren't that way. But not all of them. Not all of them. And oh my God, it's 12:30 already. Okay, I've got to bring this down. It's 12:30. I've got to leave for work here in an hour. So, and I haven't even packed my lunch yet. So y'all have a good day. Please enjoy. Thank you for coming out. An hour and a half stream, respectable considering. And we'll be back tomorrow. So y'all have a good time. Enjoy. Becca, please keep driving safe. All right. And everyone, you know, my usual saying here, please be with the ones you love and love the ones that you're with. Y'all have a good day now. Thank you all. Ryan, Becca, Sean. I didn't see Shio show up today. I appreciate y'all coming out and listening to me. Have a good day now.